Welcome to episode 26 of The Leap Home. Good night, dear heart.
In this week's episode, Sam must put on his detective hat and solve a murder that nobody believes has happened when he leaps into a small town mortician and develops an obsession with a corpse. If there is a murderer, it seems the town is not willing to help Sam discover it. But can he make the vital breakthrough before the victim is interred? Or will the crucial evidence be buried with her forever?
Melvin, I'm starting to worry about you. Beautiful dead girl, naked under a sheet, must have a way of making a man think strange.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
Thinking strangely.
Looking under sheets. Certainly feeling better than last week, that's for sure.
Yeah, you sound better.
Yeah, that's the most important thing for this format.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Sam takes his creepiness to a new level in this episode.
Both independently noted that exact.
Word for word.
Yeah. We will discuss this numerous times.
In every scene.
And probably in great detail. He's a creepy man. There's one scene where I've noted that he comes within, I suppose, seconds of banging a corpse, I think.
And we know that Al's not into that because he told us
exactly
a few weeks ago. I
think the only reason that Sam doesn't take it further is because he knows that Al can appear at any time.
Yeah, that's
He's worried about getting caught.
There was a few sort of Poirot-y, Columbo-y vibes to this one, although maybe more Commodore Columbo.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. No, I think there was a typical denouement, is that what you call it?
Denouement.
Where he brings them all together at the end.
Yes, it's not really a quantum leap trope, but
no,
it certainly is a trope.
The murder mystery, yeah.
Yeah.
Before we leap into this week's episode, it wasn't it? Let's hear some socials.
Yeah, just the usual. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Leap Home Podcast, where we enjoy chatting with folk on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. We're on Facebook at The Leap Home. TheLeapHome.com, you'll find show notes there for each episode as it comes out on the podcast. And if you want to be ahead of the crowd, you can go to our YouTube channel, Columbo Podcast Productions, where every episode comes out 1 week earlier.
I think I might go for Massive Dong instead of a Snapchat from now on. How do we get on with that?
Mastodon?
Yeah.
No, we're not on that.
Will we ever be on it?
I suspect it might not be that popular in a few weeks' time.
Okay.
It's probably by the time this comes out. In fact, everyone's got over their obsession with leaving Twitter and joining whatever else there is.
Yeah.
Also, review us, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you get the opportunity. That would be very much appreciated.
That would be good, yeah.
Shall we look into this one?
Let's crack on.
Same intro as last week and the week before.
Yeah, the now traditional
It seems
intro.
to be stabilised. Strong and stable.
Okay, from now on we'll just call it the intro then.
Yes, unless something happens that makes it different. But we won't notice because we probably now start skipping it.
Yeah.
We see Sam leap into a room. There's a sheriff there dangling a piece of jewellery in front of him.
Yeah, he's been asked his thoughts on a love heart locket.
It's gold and it's got German writing in the back, which he translates after a moment's hesitation as "My love forever."
The cop, he is called Lyle. Sam, he is who?
He's the mortician.
What's his name?
Is it Morris?
Melvin.
You never need that, really.
No. I noticed straight away that he had a blood-stained apron on.
Yes, he did. Because he's also been chopping up bodies.
Yeah, although I think it's meant to be more of a reveal in a few moments when he stands.
Yes, of course. He opens, before he stands, he opens the locket up and it's got a black and white photo of a family, and the sheriff says the little girl in the image must be her, which confuses Sam momentarily.
Yeah, he asks who her is and is disturbed when Lyle points behind him and he sees the body of a woman lying on a mortuary slab.
Yes, and like you say, when he stands up, we see this blood-stained apron and says, quite stupidly, she's dead.
Mm-hmm. It's also worth noting that in the photo, the father was in a military uniform.
Yes, and there was, I think, a mother and two brothers.
Looked like it.
The sarcastic cop, on hearing Sam say she's dead, says he should have been a detective rather than a mortician, which gives him the reveal of his profession.
We then get the credits, and when we return, we find out what the date is.
Yeah, it's November the 9th, 1957. It appears like it's a church-type building that's being used as a mortuary.
I'd imagine in these smaller communities that they have to Their buildings serve several purposes.
Keep the bodies closer to God.
Yeah.
The sheriff asks Sam if the job's getting to him as he continues to struggle with the specifics of his task.
Yeah, Lila's obviously confused at Sam's reaction to the situation, considering what his job is. And Sam notes that she was so young.
But this isn't a big deal to the sheriff, who recalls a young boy a year or two earlier who was hit by a speedboat, which Sam agrees was horrible.
Lyle still thinks that Sam's acting strangely, but they are interrupted by someone arriving at the front entrance, who Lyle assumes is Greg.
Yes, Greg Truesdale. But it's not just Greg.
No, he anxiously finds that Greg has brought his father Roger with him, and by the deferential way that he acts, it's clear that Roger's someone with a degree of authority in this town.
Yes, a bit like the general that we had back at the murder trial.
Yes, or the newspaper man in the rock and roll one.
Yes, the Peoria one.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that the woman who's died worked at the resort that these two
they
run.
call it the Truesdale Lodge or whatever it is. It's a sort of
spa type place. Yeah. They declined to shake Sam's hand, obviously with his...
We see this a few times. It was quite a nice touch. I'm wondering if in real life that is the
mortician's fate. Yeah.
Yeah. They all move back to the actual mortuary itself. Now, what's her name? We find out it's Hilda.
No, it's Hilla.
Hilla, that's it.
And a lot of them call her Hilly.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah. So yes, the younger man, Greg, is upset when he sees the body, but his father tells him to suck it up.
Yeah, I think Greg admits that they were friends.
Yes.
Nothing more at this stage.
He doesn't admit anything more, and he runs out the back door.
And also, I think the father, he becomes somewhat defensive when this revelation that Greg was a friend is put forward. And I think what he says is that he had a lot of good-looking girls running after him.
Yeah, of course. He says first of all, he explains the fact that Greg ran off on him having his mother's stomach. And then he says, yes, Hilla was a desk clerk. He'd hired her at the start of the season. But there's a lot of girls chasing after Greg. She's just one of.
However, Sam is not shy in noting that it seems that there was more to it than that, which we see shocks Lyle. I think the arrogance or the
impetuosity. Yes.
That's it. To contradict Roger is not normal.
No. We hear from Roger that he thinks Hilla's family were all killed during the war. Obviously, we've just said this is 1957, so maybe just over a decade past World War II. He says he'll pay for her burial, seeing as she worked for him. Yeah,
she's to be put in the ground in Potter's Field. That must be
the pauper's grave sort of thing. I imagine our community area. So Roger leaves, and the sheriff has some harsh words for Sam.
Yeah, he asks why he was contradicting Mr. Truesdale, and he responds by claiming that Hilla meant more to Greg than was being let on. But Sheriff reminds him that without Roger, he wouldn't be the coroner, and advises him to remember that as he turns and leaves.
Yeah, a bit of a small town thing going on again, like we said.
Yeah, I think this is probably more common than we would imagine. Certainly back then, when there wasn't as much centralisation, everyone worked locally and things like that. So if you were the largest employer in a neighbourhood, you had a lot of power. You could make people's lives miserable if you
chose. They certainly seem to be setting up the idea that the sheriff's not interested in investigating these people. If there's any evidence against them, it's not his business.
For sure, he doesn't want to ruffle any feathers.
No. You suspect that perhaps he's the sheriff because of this man as well.
Without a doubt, yeah.
So once the sheriff's gone, Sam takes a look in Hilla's bag and finds her passport, which causes him to reveal a new superpower. I didn't know this was part of his leaping.
We see this quite a few times. We get this sort of, not necessarily a flashback because he was never there in the first place, but we get this image of Hilla flashing in front of or behind his eyes.
And whether it's even a real image, maybe it's just his imagination getting away with everything. Like he sees her photo and he imagines what she would be like.
It's never really explained, and I think it would have been useful if Sam had asked Al what was happening, and maybe Al had an explanation from Ziggy or whatever that it's been caused by.
I mean, it certainly gets dramatic music. So it's the implication is this is a real thing. He is seeing this.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't unpleasant, and it wasn't it wasn't something I'd
It's not jarring.
It's not jarring, but you
bit
would like
weird.
to know what's happening, and he's like to, as I said, you would like him to question it at least.
Yeah. At this point, another woman shows up at the mortuary. I think her name's Stephanie.
Yeah, she enters and confirms that the locket was her mother's, and again, her family all died in the war.
She's more specific than that. She says that her father had died in North Africa and her mother and brothers were killed in the firebombing of Dresden. Who would attack civilians? What monsters?
You can only wonder. I thought this was a little bit convenient. I thought there'd be more of a relationship between Stephanie and the Truesdales, because they literally just walked out and she walked in. They must have bumped into each other.
Yeah, and she takes a few liberties here. She acts like she's got, you know, if not authority, certainly she's not going to be challenged when she starts lifting up the sheets over the body and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, wearing a Truesdale jacket, she helps herself to pulling back the sheet. I mean, can people just walk in to
Well, maybe things are different in a small town.
Really?
I don't know. I would have thought this is very irregular.
Of course.
But then, of course, there's not an ongoing police investigation. It's not an open case.
But still, why would you think that you could just walk? I mean, people aren't accustomed to
I
being
want to
in
see
that
my friend
environment.
who's died. Yeah, I'm just going to walk straight into the mortuary and
It's just something that most people
touch her body.
rarely face, and you would think that they're more nervous and asking, like, "Oh, what do I do?"
Yeah, or at least deferential to the mortician.
Yeah, there's a confidence here as if she does this all the time.
Yeah. She cries when she sees Hella's face and says she should have known and should have stopped her.
Yeah, and she wonders, why it happened, considering everything that she went through. She was a fighter. She overcame so many obstacles that this seems somehow even more of a waste, I suppose.
Unable to offer any resistance to a pretty face, Sam is immediately very sympathetic.
Yeah, he certainly is. She claims that she should have stopped her, and then notices her clothes and gathers them up, insisting that she has to get them cleaned and panics before leaving them and then running out.
Yeah, Sam tells her that people often feel like this when someone dies, but it doesn't matter anymore. And she has to leave the stuff behind, including the shoe. I think she'd picked up the shoe, the single shoe.
Yes. So as she runs out, she's followed by Sam.
Not just followed, pursued by Sam at high speed.
Yeah, who offers to drive her home, but she declines.
How does he even know where she lives? Is he going to drive her to the lodge, I suppose?
Yeah.
You won't know where that is.
This is the other thing, we've discussed it every episode. But I suppose things like driving, what if the person that you leap into can't drive? Does your skill and knowledge...
Yeah. Well, I presume you'll be able to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems he did CPR when he was Jimmy.
Yeah, that's true.
But the thing is here, it seems like now, every time he arrives, he assesses every woman to see, is she a potential love interest?
Victim.
It's like, does she want to go in the car with me? Is she attracted to me?
Yeah. What's
This one's dead, but pretty.
How can I exploit her vulnerabilities?
Yeah. This one, Stephanie, is not interested in his games and tells him she has to get out of there.
Yeah, and then he catches a glimpse of himself for the first time and is not impressed by the overweight, middle-aged man that looks back at him.
He's also not impressed by the bloodstained apron, which he suspects is why nobody wants to be touching him.
And at this point, Al makes his first appearance.
Yeah, he finds himself in the middle of a coffin, which spooks him slightly.
Yes. Now, again, mentioned this before, don't want to labour the point, but I will. Al is himself a man of science. He shouldn't be getting spooked out with things like, dead bodies.
Well, some folk find these things a bit creepy.
But he's went through, he's a high-level pilot and an astronaut. You're trained in all this type of stuff, surely.
Yeah.
It's like death's if you're an astronaut, especially back then, and a pilot, there's a high chance of death, and you must have witnessed and experienced it.
Sure,
I don't know
people
if
have different thresholds for these things. Like, I can't watch things with excessive gore,
But you're not
even though I know it's fictional, it's not real. I just don't like it.
But you're not a trained astronaut, and you're not invented. You're not. Your logic and thinking isn't sufficiently.
But I know intellectually this is not real. It's prosthetics and CGI. But you still makes you squirm watching it sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Al has frightened Sam by doing this, which is quite amusing for a moment.
Yes.
It's not the first time, I think. Also in the FBI episode, he got into trouble for sneaking up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, he tells Sam he's a mortician and he lives in this small town of Riven Rock, which is 2 words, Massachusetts, so not far from Boston again. He's been appointed coroner which is obviously an elected position, I guess.
Yeah, I think he says that in these small towns, the local mortician is often given this role. There won't be many other applicants for the job, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
And he's not keen on this leap, as Sam concedes that he probably doesn't need him, as he shows him the body and noting that he is too late to help the victim.
Maybe I will sit this one out. Ziggy doesn't know why you're here, and about all he's got on the girl there is...
Hilla.
Yes, Hilla is she committed suicide by drowning on November 9th, 1957.
November 9th?
What? What?
Today's her birthday. She's 19.
Forever.
Why am I here?
I told you we don't know.
It's got to have something to do with her, right? Who was she, Al? Who was she? What songs did she like to sing? Who'd she dream about at night?
William Holden.
What?
William Holden. It's 1957. She's a teenager. She had to have a crush on either William Holden or James Dean. Knowing her background, my money's on Bill. I bet Picnic is the first movie she saw when she came to the United States. She looks like she's sleeping.
Sweet dreams. Al, she didn't commit suicide. She was murdered.
That is the first instance of Sam in this episode being just inappropriate, creepy.
He starts stroking the corpse's hair.
Like I said, if it wasn't for Al, he would be up to all sorts.
He would never have solved this case if she was ugly.
Exactly. It reminded me a few times, there was in Columbo, we saw this where he talks about how the victim, in fact, what I'm thinking about, Issued in Black was the same situation. It was an apparent suicide, which turned out to be murder, and he talks about how beautiful she was and how he can't understand that, what a waste, this beauty. It's like, if she was ugly, it would have been all right, understandable. Yeah. And you have to ask yourself here, if this was a man that he had to save, would he have, would have been so invested in it? Would he have been affected in the same way?
No, it would have been written differently.
Yeah, he's just a creepy guy.
Very much so. He also, having found this hole in the temple, assumes it's a bullet hole.
He does. Also, he says that he saw a lot of this in his last year of med school. Really? Do you study a lot of bullet injuries? I mean, maybe in the States, but...
And then we later found it's not a bullet hole, so
exactly.
He completely messed it up.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he wonders how the police chief has missed this, and he assumes that there's still a bullet in the head.
And also, I mean, the note I've taken, and I'm watching this live again as we do, but she could have shot herself first to make sure. I mean, throwing yourself in the lake isn't a guarantee way of doing it. If you want to top yourself, then a gunshot would have been preferable.
But he does address that later on, in terms of asking the sheriff to find the gun and so on.
Yeah. He is further disturbed when he finds no exit wound.
Yeah, so he thinks the bullet must still be in her head, and he pulls his apron back on to investigate, which sickens Al slightly. And
at this, he promptly leaves. And we see Sam pick up a scalpel as we fade to later on. Surely a scalpel, if you've got the inside someone's skull, it'd be a saw.
Well,
what's a scalpel do?
He's going to peel back the skin and see if the skull's shattered, I suppose.
All right.
Or maybe he's just going to open it up a little bit and stick tweezers in, like we see in the next scene.
Move the brain around.
Yeah. So it starts off, the next scene, with him dropping what we assume is a bit of a bullet into a tray, but when Al returns, Sam says it was not a bullet, it was shrapnel from a completely separate wound.
What's the chances?
And there was no bullet, which is mystifying to him. Okay,
so the next 2 points I've made, the first one was, I'm trying to think, okay, this is I think maybe that's the type of thing in Mythbusters would have looked at. I thought, could it be a frozen water bullet? Right? But He then picks up a shoe and claims that the scuff on the heel means that she was dragged to the dock. And at this point, I thought to myself, "Oh yeah, not a bullet hole, but that looks like a stiletto injury."
Could be.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Al isn't sold on this idea of her being dragged along the pier, saying a lot of women keep their shoes in bad condition. But Sam says that can't possibly be true because Stephanie said that Hilla liked to keep her stuff in good condition. Therefore, she would definitely not have had scuffed shoes.
Yeah, but even if that is the case, you can still by accident, scuff your shoe. Someone stands in the back of it. What are you going to do? Throw them out immediately?
Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, Sam then makes the argument that we saw him make previously in other episodes that if there wasn't a killer, if it was a suicide, he wouldn't be there. Which you could make in every single episode, in theory.
Yeah. I think Al also points out that she could have shot herself.
But then I think Sam says, where's the gun, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get into more detail on that.
Yeah, in any case, he believes he is there to get justice for her in death.
We then see a picturesque little bridge and a little black hearse driving across it on its way to Truesdale Lodge.
Yeah, I think we hear his inner thoughts as he says that he normally gets to walk in another man's shoes, but in this case he's getting to drive their car.
Yeah.
He also considers that all he knows about Hilla is that having survived so much, she either had a strong will to live or was very lucky. And as one of them has ran out, obviously, he's going to try and find out which.
That's such a stupid thing to say. Oh yeah, folk who die in war and had no will to live. That's ridiculous. Anyhow, he shows up in this lodge and meets Greg again, who refuses to shake his hand.
I like the 1950s car outside.
Yes.
Big fins and the
I
chrome.
quite like the 1950s hearse.
Yeah.
That he was driving.
That'd be cool. Would you drive that? Would you ever get one?
No.
Have you never thought about getting like weird cars? And
Not a hearse.
no?
No. Your car's a bit like a hearse.
That's just because I've got dead bodies in it.
Well, there's that, yeah. You'd probably need to spray it.
Yeah. Well, Sam would.
Yes. Anyhow, Greg is asked by Sam which room Hilla stayed in, and he's told it was the first one on the left.
Yeah, and he asks why he wants to know and doesn't like the answer.
Yeah, Sam needs a dress to bury her in. That's his cover story.
Yeah. He wants to... I won't go
I want to
right
change
now.
her.
Yeah. What's her favourite knickers?
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
Are there any that haven't been washed?
Anyway, Greg does tell him what her favourite dress was, and from this, Sam deduces that he loved her, and rather than deny it, he walks off, clearly upset.
Yeah, well, he says that everyone loved her before
Yeah.
walking off. That's a big leap from Sam yet again. So,
Yeah.
he was upset that she died. He knows her favourite dress. He loved her.
Because
It's an illicit affair.
it's because he loves her already.
Yeah, he doesn't understand how anyone couldn't.
He's fallen for a dead body
He has.
because she was quite hot. I mean,
It's beyond absurd.
he's a weirdo.
He gets to Hilla's room and we see quite a nice shot. Actually, we see the reflection of him entering the room. So it's the actor playing the.
That was very nice, yes. And he also notices a poster of the Holden movie Picnic, as predicted by Al on the wall.
Very accurate. He puts on a record for some reason.
Yeah, he plays Moonglow, which is the theme from Picnic.
Yeah, but why is he going through our stuff and playing our records?
Because he's creepy. This is like Silence of the Lambs stuff here. He's going to start dressing up as her and
It's like
tucking
a
things.
sense of entitlement. Like he feels that he likes the way she looks, therefore he's entitled to invade her privacy and
Yep.
get involved with all her stuff in her room.
Yep. Al's going to appear. Greg's going to walk in and he's got to have her knickers on his head. He's in the mood. He's just
He goes through her desk as well. He examines a kind of creepy doll that's sitting there.
it's burnt, and bits falling off it,
And a photograph of presumably herself.
Well, that's we saw that a couple of times in Columbo as well.
Yes, people with photos of themselves.
Why would you ever, if you just lived like in a small apartment, right?
In case I forget what I look like.
A big picture
There's
of
a giant mirror on the wall.
of yourself. It's just oddball stuff.
Yeah. He finds a reel, presumably a film reel, in a drawer, which he puts back after a quick look. And then he gets these weird superpower flashes again.
Yeah, but we also, I think the creepy doll causes a soundtrack of sort of screams and sirens to play in his head. I mean, I'm not sure if it fits the show, but it was all right.
Yeah, it's effective. Mm-hmm. We kind of hear this voice talking about needing someone to love and agreeing to go out with Greg before Oh, sorry, this is when he's reading the diary.
Yes.
Which doesn't make sense because he's looking at a page that says 1st July and he talks about 4th July.
Must have turned it over.
And it says something about the zoo and he doesn't say anything about a zoo.
He also finds a film reel.
He puts it back in the drawer after a quick look.
Yeah, a quick glance at it, yeah. He's like, oh, I've hit the jackpot here. He's like, ah, damn it, he's clothed.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I say, he's reading this July the 4th entry, which talks about breaking up with somebody, which he assumes was Greg.
Yeah, I was never convinced. I would have to go back and rewatch it, but I was never convinced that what he thinks she said was actually said in this diary at all.
Well, the stuff that's written down doesn't bear any resemblance to what he's saying.
No.
It says completely different stuff.
Yeah. I think she also mentions that she empathises with William Holden's character in Picnic, as she feels alone and has no one to love.
Mm.
And also we see a piece of paper dropped from the diary, but is that ever referenced again?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
It's her blood test results.
Ah, yes. Okay. I thought it was a receipt.
Yeah, it's proving she'd been somewhere, but no.
Yeah. I'm not sure why, but he glances at it and then just puts it away. Surely, as a doctor,
You would recognise what it was.
Yeah, if you're acting as a detective here,
Well, you would think.
someone who's saved blood test results, this might be a clue. It's like,
That's rubbish.
yeah, where's the nudie pictures?
One track mind. He's interrupted at this point.
By whom?
Stephanie.
She's creepy as well.
She is a bit creepy, but she's also not very happy with Sam.
No, she's not, but did you not notice when she appeared, it was like you couldn't, I think it was the actress who played Hilla.
Yes.
He looks up and then, but when she actually walks into the light, he sees it as Stephanie. So he's already sort of fantasizing and imagining.
Hallucinating, yeah.
Yeah, really weird for someone.
Well, it's not weird for Sam. We know he obsesses everywhere he goes.
Yeah, but anyway, it's not the dead Hilla, his fantasy figure. It is her friend Stephanie, as you mentioned, who wants to know what he is doing.
I came to pick out a dress for Hilla's funeral.
And to listen to her records while you read her diary?
It's in German. Look, Stephanie, I am the coroner.
It doesn't give you the right to go through her things.
She was beautiful.
My camera loved her.
You took that?
It's a hobby I'd hoped to turn into a profession. Hilly and I were going to go back to New York together. She was going to be a big fashion model, and I'd shoot all her covers. She'd have made it, too. Keep expecting her to walk through the door, you know? Hilly understood life better than most people. Maybe because she'd seen so much death. That's why I can't believe she killed herself.
Maybe she didn't.
What do you mean?
She may have been murdered.
Oh, God.
Do you have any idea who may have done it?
No. Everyone loved her. No one would want her dead.
What?
Nothing.
It's not nothing. What are you thinking?
Truesdale fired her.
Because of his son?
Greg had a fling with Hilly.
Fling. Seemed like he loved her.
Oh, he loves a lot of the girls, but he's not going to get serious with someone like Hilly. His father would kill him.
Sam asks Stephanie to keep this to herself for now.
Obviously, she's happy to agree to that. And as she leaves, recommends the same dress that Greg had mentioned.
Yes.
And then Al appears. He's found the dress and confirms that he has been there long enough to know that Sam suspects Roger.
But Sam's not limiting his suspicion to one man.
No, he adds Greg to his list of people with motive and mentions the diary where she wrote that she met someone new, but I don't think she did.
Well, yeah, she's falling for Greg at that point.
Yeah.
Because she didn't start seeing Greg until later on, remember?
Hmm.
This is also where he mentions the blood test results showing that she is pregnant, but he reveals it in a very conservative right-wing way.
Yes.
By saying 2 people died.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. 2 people didn't die. One person who was pregnant died.
Back to the mortuary. After a brief glance Lyle claims that the wound isn't from a gun, and Sam has to back down when he's asked for the bullet.
Yes, to admit he didn't find a bullet, but says he does believe it's a murder case.
Yes, which causes Lyle to respond inappropriately.
Yeah, like we heard at the top of the show, I think.
And in Sam's case, probably accurately.
Yeah, fair enough. They have a chat about the potential for a gun, even though the sheriff says it's not a bullet hole. Sam says if she killed herself, there'll be a gun in the lake, but...
No, sorry, we missed a bit there. When Lyle says this, Sam goes to grab him. He's enraged.
Well, yeah, because Lyle turns away and Sam grabs his arm, doesn't he?
Yeah, but that's because I think there's an element of truth in what he said.
Yeah, but Sam just rides roughshod over this, rather than just... and Lyle also backs down too quickly off his position of there being no bullet.
Yeah.
And agrees to look for a gun, but tells Sam that no matter what he finds, the body's getting buried the next day.
Yeah, I think by this point Al's appeared. I think it's Al that calms Sam down.
Yeah, well, once when the sheriff makes his point, it's Al who says to Sam, just, cool it a bit. And then once the sheriff is gone, after Sam agrees to this, Al says that he had a point, and even if he finds a gun, there's no bullet that they can match it to.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, the issue, what I've mentioned here, I think is what Al says. I've actually referenced Ken Franklin from Murder by the Book.
All right, okay.
Because he talks about a professional killer would leave the gun, doesn't take it, you don't take the gun with you.
Yeah.
And that could also be the case as well. So finding the gun doesn't mean that it was suicide.
No.
A killer would probably have thrown it into the water beside her.
It would be crucial evidence, though.
True.
Anyhow, this conversation finishes and a woman, who we later learn is called Aggie, comes in and overhears Sam talking to Al, asking him if he's talking to the stiffs again.
Yes. But she just laughs at him and remarks that the good thing is that they don't talk back. So she's obviously been around.
Yeah. I think she does I don't think it's embalming, but I think she's doing...
Oh, it's just the makeup.
Makeup on the bodies so they look their best for being buried.
She's the local beautician.
Yes, and when she pulls out her kit, Al makes a swift exit.
Yeah. He's very squeamish, isn't he? I mean, there's no cutting up of bodies here.
No, I think it's just pulling back the sheet on the face.
Well, yeah, he said it doesn't like dead bodies, yeah.
So once he's gone, Aggie asks Sam what dress he got, and he realises that he's left it at Hillary's.
Yeah, he says he forgot, but I'm not sure he did. I think he wanted to go back there because he's a deviant.
Well, that's true. Aggie says that he's normally the one on at her for forgetting stuff and sends him off to get it.
Yeah, she says that she can't be buried naked even if she had no money.
Harsh.
Yep. Two things. One, that immediately makes Sam think of her naked. He's like, oh, right. But also, at this, Sam assumes that she must have known her because she knew that she
had no money.
Yeah. But she denies it, saying that, you know what, I work in a beauty salon and people talk, so yeah. And then creepy Sam tells her to keep the look as natural as possible.
What is he getting involved for?
He's giving her advice on what sort of makeup make mine, my darling, look this way.
I want her to look a specific way, just for me.
What a weirdo.
Yes.
And at this point, the camera looks down at the face of Hilla and transitions into her appearing on film as we head back to her room.
Yes.
Yeah, we find Sam again watching the film that he found, which shows a happy young German playing up for the camera. And at this point, Al arrives, where even he is getting creeped out by Sam's behaviour.
What are you doing back here, Sam?
Came to get her dressed to bury Hilla.
Decided to stay for the late show.
Are you gonna sit this leap out, Al?
Now, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of fixations on women, but this,
It's not one of your cheap flings.
whatever, this is an obsession.
Look at her, Al. She's so young and beautiful and full of life. Is that a girl who could kill herself?
This is 1957, Sam. An unmarried girl that got pregnant was an outcast. Sometimes they'd end the pregnancy. Sometimes they'd even end their own lives.
Maybe Greg helped her do both.
You really think he killed her?
Hilla tried to break up with Greg on the 4th.
She said they fought all night. She broke with him, Al, but it was too late. She was pregnant.
He's gotta be the killer.
But you got no proof of that.
I got feelings.
Feelings? That's a song. You got no evidence. You got no gun. You got no bullet. You got nothing.
I got her.
You got shadow and light flickering on a wall. That's not Hilla. What you're seeing is in your imagination.
She's trying to tell me something, Al. I don't know what it is, but she's trying to tell me something.
I don't think we can overemphasize the inappropriate and appallingly creepy nature of Sam's behaviour here.
It just escalates as the scene goes on. He starts off by saying she couldn't kill herself because she's so beautiful, which shows complete misunderstanding of how mental health works.
Well, yeah, he says
For a
that.
scientist.
Yeah, he looks at her and says, "Oh, she was so happy and full of life." It's like, yeah, people who are suicidal don't walk about all the time going, "I'm so depressed," you know.
Yeah. Oh, some might, but not all.
Not all, yeah.
He then says that, despite the fact that Al's able to counter this point, he then says that the evidence he has are his feelings and that he has her.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
He wants to take her home and keep her in his bed.
He just wants that film just to play on a loop.
Yeah.
And that's her captured in a moment in time with him.
Not only would he be up to all sorts with the body if Al, there wasn't the possibility that Al was going to show up, I could see him wearing that dress up and trying to squeeze into all her clothes and...
That's a very strange man, isn't he?
Yeah, dancing and talking to himself with that tune on. Yeah, it's just this...
It's good to see Al call him out for once.
Yes.
And he's
Well, he
on
had to.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Sam doesn't snap to at this point, and he's still stuck with this obsession.
Well, so when they're disgusted, Al goes. Sam, he reluctantly admits that Al might be right, and says that he's been haunted by Hilla, and that he believes that he is there to put her murderer away. And then it's another sort of flickering flashback to her image. So he sort of understands that he's taking it too far, but he can't control himself. He can't stop himself.
There's something wrong with him.
There is something wrong with him. I mean, it's bad enough, as we've seen in the past, where he meets a woman for the first time and literally within moments he falls in love and things. But this is...
Beyond the pale.
It is beyond the pale.
That's a good play on words with the pale corpse. Yeah. We head down to the lake where the sheriff is smugly able to tell Sam that there is no gun, nor evidence or motive for murder.
No, but I think what Sam says there when the sheriff admits there's no gun, he says, well, this proves that she didn't shoot herself.
It's a no-lose scenario for Sam. It's like, if there is a gun, she didn't kill herself. And if there's no gun, she didn't kill herself.
But the exasperated cop is not interested and tells him that he's no evidence or motive. And, you know, it's a...
But Sam plays his trump card here.
What's that?
He reveals the pregnancy.
Yeah, okay.
He then heads off with the sheriff.
Well, I think he says
following.
They both know who the father was, and he turns and walks away.
Massive assumption.
Of course it is.
He knows very little about this woman. She could have had multiple sexual partners.
And in that day and age, you can't prove this. There's no sort of... I don't think there's a paternity test back then, is there?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Or certainly there's no way of enforcing it with the scant evidence that...
No. And there's no test they can do anyway when she's dead, I wouldn't have thought.
We catch up with the pair of them up at the lodge.
Roger and Greg, who are having an archery contest.
Yeah, Sam purposefully strides over towards them. And Roger, I think he initially assumes that he'd like to sort of deflect his appearance by saying, oh yeah, I've got this check for you for the funeral. He thinks that's what they're there for.
Yes. He's also able to note that for the first time since Greg was 16, Roger has beaten him, emphasising how distracted Greg is. And also, did you not think that those arrows look like they might make a hole like a bullet? They didn't make a big point of that at all.
No, but he is shocked when Sam tells him that he can't bury Hilla until he has finished his investigation.
The tag-along sheriff says that Sam thinks there's a murder, which surprises Greg somewhat.
And then Sam mentions the bullet hole. Roger, of course, thinks that she shot herself, and Greg asks why anyone would kill her, allowing Sam to reveal this pregnancy.
Yes, but Roger speaks as though he knows about it. He says that Greg couldn't assume she was telling the truth.
Sam, I think...
Well, Sam implies that Greg must have known.
Yes.
And Roger steps in and confirms it in that way.
Of course.
Basically saying, yes, she said she was pregnant, but we didn't know.
Yeah, I think he explicitly says that he believes that Hilla said this just so that they would have to get married.
It's to trap him.
Yeah.
And Sam noticed that Greg's got a lot to lose.
Yeah, I mean, would he have a lot to lose back then? Maybe. So what would he lose if Hilla was pregnant and that became common knowledge? Then
Yeah, he would have to have married her to cover the scandal.
yeah.
Would he though? Is it not the known done thing where rich folk have kids with waifs and strays that they aren't interested in?
I think Sam talks about his going to Harvard. Would they have?
I suppose if he takes on the role of a parent, he might then be limited in his opportunities. But that's assuming he would take on that role.
Yeah, no, I thought it was the opposite. I thought just the what he had to lose was if he didn't marry her, then, you know, if he was a father out of wedlock, that would be a scandalous and he wouldn't be accepted to Harvard. But surely if
He would just deny it then, wouldn't he, if he wasn't willing to marry her? I think the issue is if he accepts that it is his kid and marries her, he then can't go to Harvard because he's got a family to care for. He'd have to work. His father would probably put him out.
Yeah, okay, maybe, yeah.
Anyhow, Greg says he was going to marry her, much to Roger's surprise.
Yeah.
They were going to elope that very night, but Sam says it's not true, she dumped you. Which is news to Greg.
Yeah, he mentions the diary and how she says that she had found someone else apparently, but Greg is adamant he didn't kill her and is able to prove it.
Yeah, well, he wasn't there that day. He was at a tournament which he won.
In Boston, yeah.
And Roger very sternly warns Sam to get his facts straight the next time he goes throwing accusations around, which is very good advice.
That is.
A justified rage in this case.
Yeah, Sam is utterly wrong here.
He's just gone off on a limb because he is mad about this girl getting murdered.
And so here's the thing. When the real Melvin comes back, he's out of a job for this cheek and nonsense and and I wouldn't blame Roger for not supporting Sam in his position anymore.
Yeah.
He was accused my son of murder.
Although I suppose the fact that they find out it was a murder maybe goes the other way. Like, he was right to think it was a murder. He just got a bit carried away.
Perhaps, but still,
Yeah.
you don't accuse people of murder unless you have
He didn't accuse him publicly either, I suppose, which I suppose might get him away with it.
Still, but if this man has some sort of influence...
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying
Sam doesn't care.
No, of course he doesn't care, no. He just wants this.
It's the same as when we did the murder trial and he got the man ostracised by the very racist town by being an anti-racism campaigner.
Yeah. Someone should just tell Sam that she's not going to F him.
Well, yeah, this is why he's mad.
Maybe she will, but she won't be consenting.
But this is probably why he's mad. He's thinking if he hadn't murdered her, I could have had a relationship with her.
Yeah.
If I'd leaped in here when she was still alive, and then maybe he's thinking, why didn't I leap in here 3 days ago and save her?
Sam's going to try and leap. I wonder, can you leap out with things? Can you leap out with her underwear or the film?
No, I don't think he can. Because he always appears not only not in his own clothes, but
that's true,
with the accessories of whoever he's becoming. Anyhow, we go back to Hilla's room where Sam is now, I think, pleasuring himself over the photo.
It looks like it, yep. He's very, very creepy.
He's fiddling with the locket with his other hand, and what I've written is beyond creepy.
What I've written here is, I suspect her underwear drawer is not safe.
It's probably lying open.
Yes, and soiled. Sodden.
He's still playing her records, but then Al shows up.
Yeah, he's playing the record over and over because it's on, and then he gets back over and he starts it again. So this is psycho material, serial killer stuff.
Yes, if she wasn't already dead, she'd be in bother.
Yeah. Oh, she still isn't bother.
Al shows up in a sensational shirt, with what looks like an electronic element at the neck.
I think he's done that a few times. There's been digital aspects to it. Yeah, it's nice.
He tells Sam that Hilla's not coming through the door, which I think is a reference to when he hallucinated that she was. But Sam says nobody else is on her side. She's dead.
Yeah, I mean, you can see he's being a little irrational.
Al decided that the way to play this is to try and go towards Sam, but not all the way. He says that as a fellow orphan, he'll be on Hilla's side.
Okay, so a couple of things about this. Firstly, to go back to, no one else being on her side, that's fine. You can still try and get justice for her here.
Yeah,
but you're acting like
you're going way beyond that, yeah.
A real sex case. Now, Al refers to himself being an orphan. He's not. We know that. His mother left him because she had a...
Well, he was in an orphanage.
That's not an orphan.
He considers himself an orphan.
It's not no. His dad used to bring his new girlfriend round and take him out so he could get laid when he was 12 or whatever
He's
it
a
was.
little orphan boy from the orphanage.
He's not at all. His mother just ran off because she couldn't handle his disabled sister. And his father turns up and takes him out places. He's not. He's equivalent of someone going to private school.
But can the word orphan be used to refer to a child who lives in an orphanage?
No. I specifically looked this up because I thought, wait a second, maybe that is the case. But it's not an orphan, it's someone whose parents have died.
Well, they're dead to him.
They're not. His dad turns up.
Anyhow, what Al does now is give Sam the future outlook for all the players in this game that Sam suspects, which doesn't include the murderer.
No, we find out that the dirty dog Roger marries a showgirl in 1962 and that Greg ended up going to Harvard and became an attorney but never married.
A divorce attorney, I believe.
Yes.
Aggie, though this is the key one, she gets indicted in 1963 for performing an illegal abortion, which gives Sam a tip-off here, and he goes to speak to her. Yeah,
we find out that charges were dropped, but because of the scandal, I suppose, or maybe legal costs, she lost her beauty shop business.
Yeah.
And that's where we find them. She is not happy that the coroner is in her place of work and initially denies knowing anything about an abortion. However, when Sam threatens to shout a bit louder, she has to admit that Hilla did turn up alone a few weeks earlier to see her, but couldn't go through with the act.
No, but Sam's instincts are proven true on this occasion when he presses the issue.
So she finally relents and admits that Roger was with her.
So Roger's trying to force Hilla to have an abortion, which she has refused to do.
Yeah, she was on the table screaming in German, and the only word that she could understand was fire.
And then we get a weird comment about, I think someone says something about her surviving the war and it's influenced her decision.
Well, Sam remembers back to the fact that Hilla lost her family in a fire in Dresden. Yeah. And Aggie insists that she ran out, and that was the last time she saw her alive.
Back in the mortuary, the sheriff has eased his hardline view somewhat, but is no closer to charging anyone with murder.
No, I mean, he's fairly agitated and he insists that he can't arrest Roger. And not because he bought him his badge, but I think rightly because the DA won't prosecute on Sam's...
He won't get past the grand jury with the lack of evidence. And that he tells Sam to just accept that she committed suicide, put her in the ground before she drags him down there too. Well, that's what Sam wants.
He would love that, wouldn't he?
He shouldn't have given him that image.
So we go to the back room, the casket room.
Yeah, the sheriff's left at this point.
Yeah, where Sam is alone, he hopes, and is seconds away from an act of necrophilia.
Yeah, he places Hilla's locket back on very carefully before pawing her face.
Yeah, he starts stroking her cheek and he then messes about with her shoes. He's got that sort of fetish as well, obviously.
Yeah, but something occurs to him.
And he lets out a little, "Oh, Hilly." I mean, he's using her nickname as well. It's not like Hilla.
Yeah, he doesn't know her. He's never met her.
No.
This is so wrong.
It's sickening.
But we then get a Poirot type
denouement.
Yes. A denouement.
Sam has summoned Roger, Greg, Lyle and Stephanie to this good old-fashioned summing up.
I like the fact that Roger says this is an outrage while sitting quite comfortably in a chair and looking perfectly happy.
Yes.
So we've got Roger, Greg, Stephanie,
I just said that.
The sheriff and Sam.
Yeah.
And Al. So that's the full...
Well, Al's not a suspect. We know that.
No, he's not a suspect. That's who's in the room.
Sam's the biggest suspect, and it was me all along. I leapt in the past. It was a previous leap where I did this. So Sam's doing his best sort of Columbo here, and he's got a movie on the screen. The film that he was
watching before. He's cleaned up the room and obviously they're not going to put a black light on it. It'll be like a...
Oh.
But anyway, he runs this reel. He makes them all sit and watch his little home movie of Hilla. And he notices it's a very amateur film.
Yes.
Poorly shot, not well focused. And Greg admits he filmed it, but yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah. Now, he goes on to say that at first he thought that Roger killed her with an arrow.
Yeah, that was we were meant to be thinking that from having seen the archery scene.
And that's why there was no bullet, but he'd measured the hole and it was different, so
it's not the only hole he measured.
Oh, and you don't want to know what he measured it with.
Yeah. Greg asks if that means it was suicide after all, but Sam says no, she was murdered by the person who shot the film, which upsets him. He says it wasn't, I mean, relatively calmly, but he says it wasn't him. He did not shoot her. But Sam points out that he only shot the first part of the film.
Yes, the first amateur part was taken by Greg, but the second was by someone more professional, or aspiring to be so.
I didn't take that.
Yes, you did. On the 4th of July, Hilly tried to end a relationship. I assumed it was with Greg. It was with you.
You and Hilly?
He's crazy. We were just friends.
Till she fell in love with Greg.
Some of the things Hilly tried to tell me make sense now. All that time she spent growing up in the displaced person camps after the war. She had to fight off men all the time. I even think she was raped. She said it was so bad that the only people that she could let get close to her were women. And even that got confusing.
I'm not going to listen to this.
I'm afraid you're going to have to, Miss Haywood.
I've never shot anyone in my life except on film.
You were on the dock with Hill the night she was killed.
That's a lie.
Lyle found this floating near Hilla's body. I assumed it was hers. But she had a small foot. Size 5. This is an 8. Of course, I'm just guessing that this is your size.
Even if it is mine, it couldn't kill her.
That is a very straight man's fantasy, creepy straight man's fantasy. Or she was horrifically raped and turned into a lesbian until she met the right man, me, who turned her back to heterosexuality.
Yeah. And Sam also, I mean, he admits on at least 2 occasions there to making unjust assumptions. I mean, he's a terrible detective.
He's not a detective.
He's not.
No, and he does it badly.
He does. Also, the whole sort of shoe thing was a little bit OJ as well.
Yeah, or Cinderella, depending how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie there said that even if that was Stephanie's shoe, it couldn't have killed Hilla, but Sam proves that's not true by smashing it through a door.
That's, again, doors aren't as strong.
They're not made of skull material, no. Bone, as it's otherwise known.
Head brick.
Head brick. Headstone, no, that's something else.
Yeah.
He says that the hole that he's just made in that door matches the one on her temple. What?
And then and then he offers Stephanie the chance to try the shoe on, like I said, like a sort of OJ type thing. She declines and instead reveals everything was perfect until Greg came along and
impregnated her.
Yeah, blames him for getting her up the duff and ruining things. She then breaks down and says that she didn't mean to hurt her and in fact loved her, but that Hilla told her that she'd been confused but now understood what true love was and that she didn't love her anymore.
True love is heterosexual.
So, yeah.
Right, and that's the end of that scene. She's confessed. We never see what happens to her.
No, well, she sort of sobs and we see Sam place a compassionate hand on her shoulder. He's thinking, another vulnerable.
There's a vulnerable woman there, yeah. We then move to the cemetery where it snows as Roger had been predicting and nobody else has shown up for the funeral.
No.
Not even Greg.
No.
This is a bit later.
This is after because we see the gravedigger finishing it off the topsoil.
So we assume there was a service and everybody showed up and then they left.
But Sam can't.
Sam can't.
He's trying to find he's got to dig a hole in the soil.
He wants to leave one final gift.
Yeah, well, yes. Something do you remember me by? The gravedigger, I think he asks, he says, you must have known her.
Nah.
Nope, no, he's like, you're a weirdo then. Why are you hanging? But even that gravedigger's like, you're odd.
Yes.
He walks off.
Al shows up in a very long white coat and a white hat.
I liked it, yeah. And asks if he is okay. But Sam says no. He didn't think that he's done any good for Hilla here.
But to calm him down, Al says, yeah, you did, yeah.
But I don't understand this. He has always said he was there to, I mean, he can't bring her back to life.
No.
All he can do is find out who the murderer was, get justice for her.
Yeah.
So why now
Allow
all of a
her
sudden...
soul to rest.
Yeah. Why now when he's done this, he's like, I didn't do it any
Because
good.
he's lamenting the fact he didn't meet her when she was alive.
doesn't
He's desperate to have met her when she was alive.
He doesn't want to leap, or he wants to leap a few years back. That's what he's desperate for now, I reckon. So he knows it's 1957.
Yep.
The next time he leaps prior to that,
He'll go and
he's
find her.
driving to
Massachusetts.
to Riven Rock, yeah.
He then pulls out a book he stole from her room
Yep.
and reads a passage which may or may not have been interesting to her about Mark Twain, or that Mark Twain wrote when his daughter died.
Yes, and I think that also quotes the episode title.
Yes, talking about. We then get a flash of Hilla once again saying that one thing missing from her life was someone to love, which is implied that was Sam.
I don't know. So I think this is Sam now just making stuff
Yeah,
up.
in his head,
Yeah.
she would have loved me if she'd met
Yeah.
me. That's what would
I'm
have fulfilled
surprised,
her.
I'm surprised it wasn't like, thank you, Sam. If only, I'll see you.
He puts these flowers that he's holding down in her grave and then leaps into a high-stakes pool game with
Yeah.
cash being tossed on the table.
There we go.
And that's it. Okay. Few questions. Do you think... okay, well, we said so to start with. Do you think the sheriff suspected it was probably Roger or Greg and wanted nothing to do with it? Or do you think he genuinely thought she'd killed herself?
No, I think at the start, the sheriff generally thought that it was an opening and shut case, as it were. But then when it got a little bit more complicated, I don't think he had the stomach to start prodding around. I think he was looking for the easy and the quieter life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, even if it had been them, he wasn't wanting anything to do with it. Although he says he's not owned by anybody.
No, I think if there was, here's the thing: Sam didn't really provide anything.
No, he had to get the confession. Same as a lot of Columbo's.
Yes. So I think that had Lyle been discovered, sort of real hard proof, he would have done his job. But he wasn't going to start, causing problems here when there was nothing. When he rightly said, I can't take this to the DA; they'll laugh at it.
Yeah.
So
Is Stephanie the first main character to be gay on the show?
yeah.
And then to make her a killer? Proportionate? I
I
suspect folk might have issues with that.
think so.
It's one step away from kill your gays, which is a trope.
Yeah, I didn't consider it to be
Make them villains.
right.
And the fact that Hilla was gay but then was brought to her senses.
Right, yeah.
It's not the most...
And she died because she was murdered for being gay, I suppose.
Well, for having been involved in that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a little bit not as friendly as it could be.
Yeah, maybe.
I had a question that I don't know, you might not have a good answer for this. You might have we can cut it if you
Probably
don't.
not.
Do you think Columbo would have handled the investigation differently, and what would he have done differently?
He would certainly have handled it differently. Yeah, he would have handled it better. He would not have played his cards before he had some sort of proof.
Yeah. I think he would have been up the lodge a lot more, but not in her room.
No,
just like harassing the people.
Yeah, and I think he would have identified yes, he would have identified the killer. So it took Sam till the very end, and he admitted he started accusing these people. Columbo never made these accusations.
He would have built up
wrong.
a situation where she had no choice but to confess because it was so obvious to everybody that she'd done it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Okay, I think at the moment we can just talk about what we've learned, what I've learned anyway. Sam can speak and read German.
Yes.
And he has a bigger problem than we first thought.
I think he has an actual issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Whether it will or not, I don't know. We also got confirmation that Al's squeamish around dead people. Okay, trivia.
Go for it.
After a few weeks off, this aired on the 7th of March 1990. Directed by Christopher T. Welch. You've heard of him before. This is the second of his 4 episodes. You can hear more about him if you go back to the podcast for Her Charm. The writer is also familiar. It's Paul Brown. This is the 5th of 13 for him. Podcast for his backstory is Kamikaze Kid. In terms of the actors in this episode, William Kane played Roger. This was his only Quantum Leap episode. He also appeared in shows like Law and Order and Spencer for Hire. Nothing particularly high profile. He's now 91 years old.
Who's your favourite TV Roger?
Hargreaves, who wrote The Mr. Men.
Okay, not Roger from the
there's one in
anniversary.
Fawlty Towers, yeah.
He's good.
Stephanie Haywood was played by Marcia Cross. This was her only Quantum Leap, but she's obviously best known for her role on Desperate Housewives.
So we mentioned that, obviously, the Wisteria Lane, that was the Mafia episode.
Yes, there's a connection for there.
And also, then that's the second, along with Terry Hatcher.
Terry Hatcher, yes, so all the main cast from Desperate Housewives.
Yeah.
She's also been on shows that you enjoy, like It's Gary Shandling's Show, Cheers, Seinfeld, Murder, She Wrote, and Melrose Place.
Also thought she was very hot.
And she still is.
Yeah.
She's now 60 and remains active, working, performing. Robert Duncan McNeil, you might have recognised him. He played Greg. This was his only Quantum Leap, but by this time he'd already appeared in his most iconic role as Kevin in the Masters of the Universe film, opposite Courtney Cox and Dolph Lundgren. He's also been in shows like Star Trek The Next Generation, Murder, She Wrote, 24, and he was a main series lead on Star Trek Voyager. Played Tom Paris in 100 odd, 150, whatever it was, episodes. He's now 58, but over the last decade he's been more of a director than an actor, which is where his main focus is. Aggie was played by Deborah Strang, her only Quantum Leap, one of her first screen appearances, but she's since shown up on series like Knots Landing, The X-Files, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, ER, and The Newsroom. And she's still active. She's about to turn 72. Paul Brown, the writer, won an Edgar Award for this one, which is Edgar Allan Poe.
I know. Yeah. I'm not sure if it was warranted or not.
As it was noted during the episode, the title comes from the Mark Twain poem about the death of his daughter. W.K. Stratton, who played the sheriff, I've not mentioned him here. We didn't mention him in episode 1 either. He was in Genesis Part 1, played the Doctor.
Okay.
But he has another role coming up, which we will save him for as a bigger role. The character that Sam leaped into in that first episode was also called Stratton.
Right.
Interestingly.
Yes, he was, yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting one. In respect of On This Date, did you have anything?
There wasn't a lot, so I've got 3 things.
Okay, I've got some around the date, but not on the date. 3 things as well.
Okay, so apparently Buddy Holly and the Crickets topped the charts in the UK, which is obviously relevant to Oh Boy. Elvis was top in the US with Jailhouse Rock.
Okay.
And Peter O'Connor, an Irish athlete, died at the age of 85.
Never heard of him.
Well, not near did I, but he was the first ever recognised world long jump record holder.
Okay.
From 1901.
Right, so on dates around about this, 6 days earlier, Laika, the dog, piloted Sputnik 2 into space, first animal in space. She died during the trip. 2 days after this, on the 11th of November 57, Jerry Lee Lewis, who just recently died, released Great Balls of Fire, which sold 1 million copies in its first 10 days, which I think is quite good. And finally, on the 16th of November, so 1 week after this date, Ed Gein killed his final victim.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Last one.
So next week we've got Pool Hall Blues, where Sam has to win a game to save the day, and we will see you in 1954.
Until then,
cheerio.
bye bye.